She never expected her best friend's brother to storm in with fire in his eyes, jealousy on his lips, and the audacity to kick the guy she was seeing straight out of her apartment. In that moment, everything she thought she knew about control, desire, and love shattered, and nothing would ever be the same again. She had always known that stepping into Olivia Hart's birthday party would be a mistake. Not because of the champagne, or the crowd of polished professionals packed into the rooftop lounge overlooking the city, but because of him. Ethan Hale stood near the bar, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking infuriatingly composed as he listened to someone speak. Best friend's brother, tech magnate, control freak, the man who had spent the last 3 years correcting her grammar, mocking her job, and looking at her like she was an unsolved problem he refused to acknowledge. Clara Mason tightened her grip on her clutch and exhaled slowly. Do not make eye contact, she muttered to herself. You are here for Olivia. Cake, polite smiles. You leave. Fate, apparently, hated her. Ethan turned at that exact moment, steel gray eyes locking onto her from across the room. His expression shifted instantly, irritation, recognition, something darker she refused to name. Perfect. Clara plastered on a smile and walked toward Olivia, who squealed and pulled her into a hug. You made it, Olivia beamed. I was worried you'd bail. I considered it, Clara said sweetly, glancing pointedly over Olivia's shoulder, but I survived. Olivia laughed, then leaned closer. Ignore him. I always do, which was a lie. She ignored nothing about Ethan. Hale, his infuriating intelligence, his rigid posture, the way he filled a room without trying, the way his gaze followed her now as she accepted a glass of wine from a passing waiter. She felt it before she saw it, the shift in energy. Clara? A warm male voice said beside her. She turned to find a tall man with kind eyes and a charming smile. Yes? I'm Daniel. Olivia said you work in publishing? I do, Clara replied, grateful for the distraction. Editors, books, chaos. Daniel laughed. I'd love to hear more. Maybe you could tell me over dinner sometime? She opened her mouth to answer. Clara doesn't date coworkers of my sister. Ethan's voice cut through the air like a blade. Both Clara and Daniel turned. Ethan had appeared at her side without warning, his presence overwhelming, his expression polite but dangerous. I'm not a coworker, Daniel said carefully. You're a guest at my sister's party. Ethan replied coolly. And you're distracting her, Clara stared at him. Excuse me? Ethan's jaw tightened. I need a word with you. You do not, she snapped. And you certainly do not get to decide who talks to me. Daniel lifted his hands. I think No, Ethan said sharply. You'll leave. The silence that followed was thick and stunned. Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. What is wrong with you? Ethan leaned closer, voice low. You're not interested in him. You do not know what I'm interested in. I do. Her laugh was sharp. The arrogance is truly breathtaking. Olivia appeared between them, eyes wide. Ethan, what are you doing? Protecting, he said. From what? Clara demanded. A conversation? Daniel cleared his throat again. I really should. Yes, Ethan said flatly. You should. Daniel hesitated, then shot Clara an apologetic look before retreating. Clara rounded on Ethan, fury burning hot. You had no right. I had every right. You are not my guardian. No, he said quietly, but I am responsible. For what? For you. The words landed between them like a fault line. Before Clara could respond, her heel caught on the edge of the step behind her. There was a split second of weightlessness, a sharp intake of breath, and then she fell. Exploded through her ankle as she hit the ground. The world blurred. Voices shouted. Someone swore. Ethan was suddenly there, hands firm on her shoulders, face pale. Don't move, he ordered, fear slicing through his composure. Clara, look at me. I hate you, she hissed through clenched teeth. Later, he said tightly. Right now, you're hurt. An ambulance was called. Olivia hovered, frantic. Ethan never left Clara's side, his hand wrapped around hers like an anchor she hadn't asked for. At the hospital, the verdict came quickly. Fracture. Severe sprain. No weight bearing for weeks. Clara stared at the ceiling, hollow. Fantastic. Ethan spoke with the doctor in low, precise tones, asking questions, arranging follow-ups. making decisions she hadn't authorized. I can manage, she snapped when he returned. No, he replied. You can't. I live alone. You won't for now. Her eyes widened. Absolutely not. You need care, he said, voice leaving no room for argument. And I won't let you struggle. She laughed bitterly. Since when do you care? His expression flickered, something raw flashing beneath the control. Since always. The words hung there, dangerous and unspoken. An hour later, she was being helped into Ethan's car, ankle immobilized, pain dull but persistent. The city lights blurred past as silence filled the vehicle. This doesn't change anything, she said quietly. I know, he replied, hands tight on the wheel. But as they pulled into the underground garage of his penthouse building, Clara had the sinking feeling that everything already had, because jealousy had cracked the door, and proximity was about to blow it wide open. Ethan. Hale's penthouse did not feel like a home. It felt like a command center. Everything was sharp lines and neutral colors, glass, steel, muted grays. Even the air felt regulated, as if disorder itself had been filtered out. Clara noticed it all as Ethan carried her inside, his grip careful but unyielding, as though he did not trust the floor not to betray her. You can put me down, she muttered. I'm not risking it, he replied, kicking the door shut behind them. The echo of the latch sounded final. He set her gently on the sofa, then crouched in front of her, eyes immediately scanning the cast, the angle of her leg, the tension in her shoulders. His focus was surgical. You need elevation, he said, already moving. Ethan, a pillow appeared beneath her ankle. Then another. He adjusted them until her leg rested perfectly, then stepped back as if assessing a solved equation. There, he said. Better. Clara stared at him. Do you do this to everyone you injure at parties? His mouth twitched. You weren't injured because of me, she raised an eyebrow. You ambushed my date. I removed a variable. She laughed, despite herself. You're unbelievable. I'm effective. He turned toward the kitchen, already opening cabinets. Pain medication? No, Clara. No, she repeated. I want to stay awake. He paused, then nodded once. Fine. She watched him move through the space like it belonged to his body as much as his mind. Everything had a place. Everything obeyed. The contrast to her own life, messy, overfull, barely held together, was jarring. So, she said, breaking the silence. What exactly is this? Kidnapping? Temporary relocation? Against my will, medically necessary? You are impossible, and you are stubborn. He returned with a glass of water and set it on the table within reach. Their fingers brushed accidentally, and both pulled back as if burned. Silence again. You should have let me go home, Clara said more softly. You would have fallen, Ethan replied. Or tried to make dinner on one leg. Or pretended you were fine until you weren't. You don't know that. I do, he said. You hate needing anyone, her throat tightened. So do you. His gaze lifted sharp. This isn't about me. It always is, she said. You just pretend it isn't. Something dark flickered in his eyes, but he said nothing. Instead, he stood and gestured down the hall. The guest room is prepared. Prepared, she repeated. You planned this? I plan for contingencies, she shook her head. You scare me sometimes. Good, he said quietly. Then, you might listen, she swallowed. You don't get to control my life. I know. Then stop trying. I can't. The honesty in his voice stole her breath. Why? She asked. He hesitated, just long enough to matter. Because every time you smile like you don't need anyone, he said. I see how close you are to breaking. The words landed harder than the fall. She looked away, blinking rapidly. You're wrong, I hope so. Later, after he helped her into the guest room and made sure she could reach everything she needed, Ethan stood in the doorway, hands braced against the frame. I'll be in the study, he said. Call if you need anything. I won't. I know. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, he added, voice low. Daniel wasn't right for you. She frowned. Why? Because he looked at you like a possibility, Ethan said, not a responsibility. And that's bad? Ethan did not answer. He simply walked away. Alone in the quiet room, Clara stared at the ceiling, her heart racing. Because for the first time she understood something terrifying. Ethan did not want her. He wanted to keep her, and she was not sure which was more dangerous. Clara woke to pain first. A dull, insistent throb radiated from her ankle, creeping upward like a reminder she could not outrun. She lay still, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, disoriented for a moment, then memory rushed back. The party. The fall, Ethan. The door was ajar. Soft light spilled in from the hallway. She checked the clock on the bedside table. 2:14. Great. She murmured. The penthouse was quiet in that intentional way, as though silence had been designed. Clara shifted carefully, trying to adjust the pillows beneath her leg. The movement sent a sharp jolt through her ankle, and before she could stop herself, a small, broken sound escaped her throat. She pressed her lips together, furious with herself. Do not call him. She counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. The pain spiked again, hotter this time, and with it came something worse: helplessness. The kind she had learned to swallow early in life. The kind that tasted like humiliation. Her vision blurred. The door opened. Ethan stood there, fully dressed, jacket discarded but shirt sleeves still rolled up, as if he had never really stopped being on duty. His eyes went immediately to her face. "You're in pain," he said. "I didn't call you. You didn't have to." He crossed the room in 3 strides, crouching beside the bed. He did not touch her yet, just looked, measuring, calculating. "Worried. How bad?" he asked. "Manageable." "That's not an answer." She exhaled shakily. "It hurts." "Okay," he said softly. "We'll fix that." He reached for the medication on the bedside table, then paused. "May I?" She nodded. He moved with quiet efficiency, helping her sit up just enough to take the pills, holding the glass steady while she drank. His fingers were warm, grounding. When he finished, he stayed where he was. "Lie back," he said. She did. Ethan adjusted the pillows again, this time slower, more careful. His knuckles brushed her calf, and she tensed. "Sorry," he murmured. "Tell me if it hurts." "It doesn't," she said, then corrected herself. "Not that." He glanced up, meeting her eyes. The space between them felt suddenly too small. Minutes passed. The medication began to dull the sharp edges, leaving behind a heavy ache. "I hate this," Clara whispered. "Needing help?" Ethan asked, being weak. His jaw tightened. "You're not weak. You don't get to decide that." "No," he said quietly. "But I get to disagree." She let out a humorless laugh. "You always do." "Yes," he admitted. "Especially when you're wrong." Her gaze dropped to his hands, resting on the mattress near her hip. Strong hands. Steady hands. Hands that had caught her without hesitation. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Do what?" "Show up," she said. "Even when I don't ask?" His eyes darkened, and for a moment she thought he would deflect, retreat behind logic and control. Instead, he sat back on his heels. "Because I know what it looks like," he said. "When someone decides they will handle everything alone." Her breath caught. "You don't know me." "I know the pattern," he replied. "You smile, you deflect, you minimize. You disappear when it gets too heavy." Her chest tightened. "Stop." He didn't. "I loved someone like that once," Ethan continued, voice low and even. "She never asked for help. She never let anyone see her fall. And one day, she was just gone." Clara's heart pounded. "Gone how?" He looked away. She left. No explanation, no goodbye. Just absence. The room felt colder. "So now," he said, meeting her gaze again, "when I see the signs, I intervene. By controlling everything?" "By staying," he corrected. Silence stretched between them. Thick and charged. "You can't save everyone," Clara said. "No," he replied, "but I can refuse to look away." Her throat burned. "That's not fair." "Neither is losing someone without warning." The honesty in his voice cracked something open inside her. Without thinking, she reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. He froze. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Ethan slowly covered her hand with his, careful, reverent, as though the moment might shatter if he pressed too hard. "This is a line," he said quietly. "I know. If we cross it," he continued, "I won't be able to pretend this is just responsibility." She swallowed. "And you need that pretense?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because caring," he said, "gives people leverage." The truth of it sat heavy between them. her fingers curled slightly against his skin. You're already past that. His breath hitched. For a moment, everything tilted toward them, toward the pool, the heat, the inevitable. Then a sharp buzz cut through the air. Ethan's phone vibrated on the bedside table. They both flinched. He closed his eyes briefly, then released her hand and stood. You should sleep, Ethan, please. The word was quiet. Vulnerable. She nodded. He turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness except for the faint glow from the city outside. At the door, he paused. I'll be right outside, he said. I'm not going anywhere. The door did not fully close. Lying in the dark, Clara stared at the ceiling. Heart racing, she had always believed strength meant standing alone. But as sleep finally claimed her, one thought refused to let go. Maybe strength was choosing not to disappear. Clara woke to sunlight spilling across the bed in pale, hesitant bands. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the faint scent of coffee, rich and unmistakably expensive, drifted into the room. And memory settled gently but firmly back into place. The penthouse. The fall. The night that had changed the shape of things. She shifted, testing her ankle. The pain was still there, but muted now, dulled to a manageable ache. She exhaled slowly, relief mixing with something more complicated. The door was open wider than she remembered. She heard Ethan's voice in the kitchen, low, controlled, unmistakably irritated. I do not care what time it is in Singapore, he said. Reschedule. A pause. No, this is not negotiable. Another pause, longer this time, because my priorities have shifted. Clara frowned. She listened as the call ended, followed by the soft clink of a mug being set down. Footsteps approached, unhurried. Ethan appeared in the doorway carrying a tray. Coffee, tea, toast, a small bowl of fruit. Everything arranged with meticulous care. You're awake, he said. Apparently. He smiled faintly. How do you feel? Like I lost a fight with gravity. Gravity is undefeated, he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. But the doctor says you'll recover. She raised an eyebrow. The doctor? House call, he replied. An hour ago. You hired a doctor while I was asleep? Yes, Ethan. You needed rest, he said calmly. This was efficient, she sighed, rubbing her forehead. You cannot just keep making decisions for me. I can, he countered. I shouldn't, but I can. That's not reassuring. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Fair. He pulled a chair closer and sat. Tell me what you need. The question caught her off guard. She stared at him, searching for the familiar edge of control, the dominance she had braced herself against since the night of the party. Instead, she found patience. Attention. I need, she said slowly, to not feel like a liability. His jaw tightened. You're not. You didn't let me finish. I didn't need to, he said. You're wrong, she let out a short laugh. You're impossible. Yes, he agreed, but consistent. She took a sip of coffee. It was exactly how she liked it. She narrowed her eyes at him. You asked someone. I observed, he said smoothly. Of course you did. Silence fell, not uncomfortable, but waited. You scared me last night, Ethan said quietly. Clara's fingers stilled around the mug. I fell. You disappeared, he corrected, and then I saw you on the floor. She swallowed. I didn't plan it. I know, he said. That's what frightened me. She looked up at him then. Really looked. The faint shadows beneath his eyes. The tension he had not quite managed to erase. You stayed, she said. Yes. All night? Yes. Why? He did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. Because leaving felt wrong. Her chest tightened. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from the hall. Ethan? A familiar voice called. Clara stiffened. Maya appeared moments later, halting abruptly when she saw Clara in bed. Oh, Maya said. You're awake, Clara. Forced a smile. Surprise. Maya crossed the room quickly, concern written all over her face. I came as soon as he called. Are you okay? I'm fine, Clara said. Mostly bruised pride. Maya shot Ethan a look. I told you she'd be stubborn. I accounted for that, he replied dryly. Maya turned back to Clara, lowering her voice. He wouldn't leave the hospital wing until the doctor cleared you, Clara blinked. Hospital wing? Maya grimaced. He has opinions. Ethan stood. I'll give you two some privacy. You don't have to, Clara began. I do, he said, already moving toward the door. Call if you need anything. He left without another word. The moment the door closed, Maya turned to her. So, she said slowly, what happened last night? Clara hesitated. You don't have to protect him, Maya added gently. I'm not, Clara said. I just don't know how to explain it, Maya studied her. Try. He looked at me, Clara said quietly, like losing me was not an option. Maya exhaled. That's because to him, it isn't. Clara frowned. What does that mean? It means, Maya said carefully, my brother does not do half measures. He either keeps people at arm's length, or he lets them all the way in. And me? You're already inside, Maya said simply. Clara's heart skipped. That's not possible. Clara, Maya said. He rearranged his entire schedule. He postponed a deal he's been negotiating for months. For you. Clara stared at her. Why would he do that? Maya's gaze softened. Because you matter to him more than he wants to admit. That's dangerous, Clara whispered. Yes, Maya agreed. For both of you. The door opened again, and Ethan reappeared, phone in hand. Your friend Daniel is here, he said. Clara's stomach dropped. Daniel? Yes, he said evenly. He insisted on seeing you. Maya's expression sharpened. The guy from the party? Yes, Ethan replied. I can handle this, Clara said quickly. I'm sure you can, Ethan said. But I won't allow him to upset you. That's not your call. It is while you're under my roof, he replied, tone calm but immovable. Maya stood. I'll stay. Clara nodded, bracing herself. Daniel entered moments later, concern plastered across his face. Clara, he said, rushing forward. I heard you fell. I tried calling. I was asleep, she said. He glanced at Ethan, irritation flickering. You didn't think to inform her friends? I informed who was necessary, Ethan said coolly. Daniel scoffed. You don't get to decide that. Ethan stepped forward, just slightly. Actually, I do. The air shifted. Daniel looked between them. This is ridiculous. Clara, you don't belong here. Come stay with me, I'll take care of you. The words landed like a match to gasoline. No, Clara said firmly. Daniel blinked. What? I said no, she repeated. I'm fine. Ethan did not look at her. His gaze was fixed on Daniel, something dark and dangerous simmering beneath. His composure. You should leave, Ethan said. Daniel laughed sharply. You're kicking me out? For caring? For overstepping, Ethan replied. And for assuming she needs rescuing. I'm her friend. You're disruptive, Ethan said, and unwelcome. Daniel turned to Clara. You're really okay with this? Clara met his eyes. Yes. The silence that followed was absolute. Daniel's jaw tightened. Fine. He turned and left without another word. When the door closed, Ethan finally exhaled. You didn't have to do that, Clara said. Yes, he replied. I did. She looked at him, heart racing. Something had shifted again. Another line crossed. Another truth exposed. And neither of them pretended otherwise anymore. The weeks that followed were a careful, delicate dance between normal life and the extraordinary. Clara's ankle had fully healed, leaving only a faint reminder when the weather turned chilly. But the experience had left its mark on both of them, on their routine, their trust, and the way they approached one another. Ethan had returned to his work, but not fully. He was always present, in the corners of her day, in the gentle reminders, the carefully timed texts, the coffee left by her bedside. Even when his empire demanded him, she could sense him watching, protecting, silently, ensuring her comfort without smothering her. That balance, fragile and perfect, was new to Clara. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of the penthouse, Ethan entered the kitchen carrying a small tray, a fresh pot of coffee, a single croissant, and a folded note. He laid it down with precise care. For me? Clara asked, raising an eyebrow. For you, he corrected, a teasing smile brushing his lips. And possibly to test whether you've begun to appreciate my exquisite taste in breakfast delivery. She laughed, shaking her head as she sipped her coffee. Exquisite is pushing it, edible is more accurate. Ethan chuckled and sat beside her. I'll take edible if it comes with your laughter. She turned to him, warmth softening the teasing in her tone. You've changed, you know. The tension. The walls. They're gone, Ethan. I had someone brave enough to knock them down, he said, eyes meeting hers, honest and raw. You, Clara's fingers brushed the edge of the note on the tray. And this? He smiled faintly. A small gesture of gratitude. I've never thanked you properly for showing up, for standing your ground, for making me face what I was too afraid to admit. She unfolded the note, reading the carefully penned words, the confession of love disguised as gratitude. She looked, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. You really are impossible. I'd prefer consistent, he said, leaning closer, the faintest brush of his lips on hers. Life settled into a rhythm, the kind that felt safe yet exciting, mundane, yet profound. They spent mornings discussing business and literature, afternoons in the quiet of their penthouse, evenings and laughter-filled dinners with Charlotte and Maya. It was a life that felt lived in, loved, and painfully, beautifully ordinary. 1. Rainy evening, as Clara curled up on the sofa with a book, Ethan entered, dripping from the downpour outside. She looked up at him, amused and exasperated. You do realize we live on the 27th floor, right? And yet you feel the need to walk through half of London in this weather? I have obligations, he said, removing his coat and tossing it with a casual flair that suggested none of the chaos outside mattered. Important obligations that require your attention. And those would be? He knelt before her, offering the small velvet box. Clara's heart caught. The timing, the gesture, the man himself, all of it seemed impossibly cinematic. For you, he said, voice steady, though his hands trembled slightly. Because you're worth more than I can ever put into words. Clara blinked, astonished. Then laughed, the sound spilling freely. Ethan? He opened the box. The ring glimmered beneath the soft lamplight, a vintage oval diamond, surrounded by smaller stones, intricate and elegant. I've tried to be practical, he said. But practicality fails when it comes to you. Will you marry me? The world fell away. Clara could hear nothing but the thundering of her own heart and the quiet, steady pulse of his beside her. Yes, she whispered, tears slipping freely now. Yes, absolutely. Yes to everything. Ethan rose, sliding the ring onto her finger. With deliberate care, and then, without hesitation, pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was slow, reverent, full of all the years of tension, longing, and unsaid words finally finding release. Around them, the city moved on, indifferent, yet somehow acknowledging the gravity of the moment. Charlotte and Maya appeared shortly after, bursting with excitement, though they were careful not to intrude on the couple's private joy. I knew it! Charlotte exclaimed, hugging Clara tightly. You two are ridiculous. Insufferable. Ethan muttered, smirking into Clara's hair. Adorable, Clara corrected, laughing through her tears. Months passed. Life continued, enriched and deepened by shared routines and small joys. The penthouse evolved from pristine perfection into a home full of soft throws, scattered books, and growing anticipation. Every day was a mixture of quiet tenderness and vibrant chaos. Ethan became both the man she loved and a partner who anticipated her every need. Massages for her ankles, care for her in the smallest daily discomforts, and relentless attention to her well-being. One evening, as Clara rested on the sofa, Ethan kneeling before her to massage her feet, she observed him. The man who had once built walls around his heart now cared for her so completely. Tenderly, it left her breathless. You know, she said, teasing, it's kind of ironic. A foot injury brought us together, and now you rub my feet nightly. Perfect. Symmetry, he replied, thumbs kneading carefully. Also, your sounds are quite informative. Clara laughed, throwing a cushion at him. He caught it effortlessly, unbothered, fingers returning to her arches with careful precision. Their life was not perfect, but it was theirs. It was filled with laughter, small arguments over sugar and tea, and the warm, grounding presence of love realized. Ethan consulted Charlotte on pregnancy milestones, interviewed caregivers, and ensured Clara's comfort with obsessive diligence. Their home grew with them, their love stretching to fill every corner, and in these quiet, extraordinary moments, Clara realized that the greatest love stories weren't always about fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes they were about ordinary mornings, unexpected coffee, and the knowledge that someone had chosen you entirely and irrevocably, every single day. You know, Ethan said thoughtfully, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I should probably send that staircase a thank you note. Clara laughed, resting her head against his shoulder. For what? For changing our story, he replied, voice low, sure, and full of love, for making everything inevitable. And in that moment, looking out at the city that stretched endlessly beyond their windows, Clara knew he was right. Without the fall, without the fear, without every obstacle, she would not have had him. And she would not have wanted anything else. Their story, improbable and breathtaking, had only just begun. The city lights shimmered beneath the twilight as Clara leaned against Ethan, feeling the familiar warmth of his arms wrapped around her. Their life together was no longer a tense balance of fear and longing. It was a rhythm, steady and comforting, that carried them through every small, miraculous moment. The penthouse hummed with quiet activity, the soft rustle of curtains, the occasional clink of cutlery from the kitchen, the distant hum of traffic below. It was ordinary, yet profoundly extraordinary because it was theirs. Ethan adjusted the pillows behind her carefully, settling her in so that her feet were elevated. You're getting more uncomfortable by the day, he muttered, scanning her with concern. I'm growing a human being, she replied with a wry smile. I think a little discomfort is allowed. He shook his head, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. Allowed doesn't mean tolerated, he said gently, kneeling to massage her ankles. This is my job now, Mrs. Clark, she laughed softly, leaning into the touch. You're spoiling me. I'd prefer to think of it as preparation, he said, his voice low, eyes glinting with both mischief and affection. For all the years ahead, for our family. Clara rested her hands on her rounded belly, feeling the subtle movements of their child inside her. Each flutter, each kick, brought a rush of love and wonder. She looked at Ethan, marveling at the way he watched her, how fully present he was, how completely he had transformed from the guarded, fear-driven man she had once feared losing into the devoted, attentive partner she now could not imagine life without. You know, she murmured, I never thought I'd see this side of you. The man who feared love so much. And now he's afraid of doing anything that might upset me. He chuckled, leaning down to press a kiss to her forehead. I've learned, he said simply. I've learned that the right risk is worth taking. You were worth every moment of fear, Clara. You still are. They shared a quiet laugh, letting the room fill with their soft mirth. Even the small things, the way Ethan fussed over her slippers, made sure her water glass was full, adjusted the blanket so it lay just right, felt monumental. Every action was proof of the care, the depth of love, the attention that had once terrified him to give. I saw Charlotte today, Clara said after a moment, her voice light. She's already planning the baby shower. I think she wants to cover the entire city in pastel decorations. Ethan groaned dramatically, though the humor in his eyes betrayed him. I knew this day would come. And yet I am powerless. You're powerless only if you refuse to enjoy it, Clara teased, pressing a hand to his cheek. You've already done everything else perfectly. A small shower can't overwhelm you. He smiled, leaning down to rest his forehead against hers. Fine, he admitted. But only because it makes you happy. Everything is for you. Now, time passed in a comfortable blur of small joys and tender routines. Days were filled with planning, laughter, and occasional arguments over trivial things, how to fold laundry, what show to watch, how much sugar belonged in the tea. Nights were soft and slow, spent curled together, hearts in sync, breath mingling. Their love had become a living thing, unthreatened by fear, resilient, luminous. One afternoon, Ethan brought Clara to the window, pointing out the skyline as the sun dipped low. Look, he said, his voice hushed, reverent. That's the city we've built our story in. The city that saw us fall apart and come together. Clara smiled, resting her head on his chest. It's beautiful, she whispered, but her eyes glimmered with more than admiration for the view. So is this, us. He pressed a kiss to the crown of her head, hands lingering on the swell of her belly. Every chapter we've written has led us here, he said softly. The accident, The misunderstandings, the fears, all of it. Every mistake brought us closer. And now we have everything that matters. She lifted her face, meeting his gaze. Everything we want, and more. He smiled, brushing his thumb across her cheek. And the best part? We've just begun. There's a lifetime ahead of us, full of moments like this, laughter, arguments, and love that grows deeper every day. The baby shifted, nudging her hand. Ethan's eyes lit up, and he pressed both hands to her belly, leaning close. "Hello, little one," he whispered, voice trembling with emotion. "Your mother and I love you already, more than words can hold. And we promise to make this world as safe, loving, and extraordinary as possible for you." Clara watched him, marveling at the transformation she had witnessed. The man who had once been consumed by fear now radiated certainty, devotion, and a warmth she could feel with every heartbeat. They settled onto the sofa together, arms wrapped around each other, the baby moving gently between them. Outside, the city's lights flickered on, reflecting in the windows, painting silver streaks across their penthouse. Inside, there was only the quiet intimacy of a family, growing, thriving, full of love and promise. "Do you remember the staircase?" Ethan asked softly, a playful glint in his eyes. Clara laughed, a warm, clear sound. "How could I forget? It started everything." "I should really send it a thank you note," he murmured, brushing his lips against hers. "For being the catalyst for the greatest love story I've ever known." "Ridiculous," she said, laughing through tears. "Absolutely," he agreed, pulling her closer, "and yet perfect. Just like us." They sat there, wrapped in each other, hearts full, watching the city they called home, feeling the life growing between them. Every touch, every glance, every shared breath was a reminder that love, when fought for and embraced, could heal, transform, and create something truly extraordinary. And as the night deepened, the city hummed softly around them, but inside the penthouse there was only warmth, safety, and the enduring certainty that some love stories, no matter how complicated, fraught, or improbable, were meant to last forever. Clara rested her head on Ethan's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he replied, voice low and certain. "Always." And in that quiet, perfect moment, they knew it was true. The greatest love stories often began with chaos, misunderstanding, or even fear, but they always ended with trust, devotion, and the simple, unwavering choice to stay. Their story was no longer just a tale of tension and longing. It was life itself, rich, full, messy, tender, and utterly, gloriously theirs.